I'm Becky Wright, and I'm going to talk to you today about differentiated instruction. My topic wasn't necessarily a controversial one. There are teachers who may not utilize this as much as others, but I feel strongly that it's an important thing to utilize if needed and at least know about and have some different ideas, tips, or tricks for it. So what is differentiated instruction? It's basically just tailoring your instruction to meet the needs of the student's individual needs. This can be adjusting things such as content, so that's what you're teaching, environment, your classroom, processes you use, and the items you use for instruction, so your supplies. The goal of differentiated instruction is that it's geared towards helping students with usually special needs. This can be students with learning disabilities, physical disabilities, or just kids that struggle in general with what's being taught in the classroom. So, differentiation in my classroom. I feel like this is an important concept to use when needed depending on the needs of the students. I do use this quite a bit. I have about 50 kids in a day. I teach 5th and 6th grade ELA, so we have rotations. So I have 2 classes of 5th and 2 classes of 6th. And in total of that, I've got 10 with IEPs, 3 have speech, 5 ESL, 2 with title, 3 gifted, and 1 that has significant vision impairment, which is a struggle for him sometimes just to keep up or do some of the things we're doing daily. And I'm going to discuss some of the things I do currently in my classroom that ties into each category. So content, examples of ways that can be adjusted. Again, content's what you're teaching. So you can adjust levels for things like spelling or vocab lists. Articles, maybe you can lower the reading level for kids. You can get level readers, different kind of books depending on what you're doing. You can also do recordings of things you're doing in class on tape. Maybe it's recordings of your notes or something that a kid can go back and replay that if they're struggling with something. You can also present content in a more audio-friendly way or even more hands-on if that's how they learn better. Some assignments you might tailor to a specific student in a certain way that's more user-friendly to them depending on their need. So this is something I use in class. We do vowel sounds, and I could bring up the slides that come with the curriculum where it's more of a lecture where we talk about the different vowel sounds and the words. But I try to make something a little more hands-on, especially with as many special needs kids as I have. So this is a Google slideshow set that I've created, and it's a little more interactive. This is just a screenshot of one of them. So they get this kind of an assignment, and so I've got like 4 slides that'll go with the vowel sound set, and these will come scrambled, and the goal of it is that they just click and move the word to the specific sound. So that's a little more hands-on than me just lecturing about it. This is also something else I use for my visually impaired student. We have the textbook blown up in a larger font for easier reading, and it's just put into a binder with protective sleeves. Another aspect for differentiation is environment, which is something you might not think a lot about, but the things in your room, your classroom, can really impact kids in a negative or positive way, depending. A distraction-free room really helps a lot. Not a lot of clutter, not a lot of stuff just laying around, keeping it clean, orderly. Having the ability for kids to move around if they need to, depending on your seating, or just being open to if that child needs to move to another area to learn better, that you're willing to look into that. Also having routines set in place where you have structure and organization, you have certain routines in place to help keep structure. Small groups with varied levels. I use this also with small groups. I have varied levels sitting at table groups where we do discussions or comprehension questions that they can all interact and give feedback to each other and share ideas. Other things might be the seating, lights, even smells can be a factor. I've worked with several autistic kids that, if you use a diffuser or a Sensi pot or something, sometimes those can really bother kids depending on the type of student you might have. This is something in my room I inherited when I got my classroom. They're wobble chairs where you can kind of rock back and forth. So I keep those at my group table so that if I've got kids that are pretty fidgety, I've got those kinds of chairs. Then we go to products, so things you're using in your room. Rubrics that are appropriate for different levels, so you might have to modify rubrics depending on the needs of that student or what their IEP says. Using manipulatives like charts, pre-made notes where they just highlight, or skeletal notes, graphic organizers, those kinds of things. Using different forms of technology in the system, so maybe it's a different kind of iPad or Chromebook or whatever helps suits their needs. Using certain agendas. If you've got autistic kids on the spectrum, you might have social stories to help them get through their day, or homework lists. I have a student who has trouble with organization, so he has an end of the day checklist for all the teachers that he takes to the after school program that tells what homework assignments he has. So this is something I use. They're anchor charts. I print them on colored paper in a smaller size than it originally comes in, and I laminate them and I put them on a binary ring to kind of have a flip chart and all the kids have access to this, just because easy access if we need it for whatever we're doing in class. This is also another thing I utilize for my visually impaired student. I have his Chromebook can hook up to this. It's just a older TV that I don't use, and it can make his screen much larger so he can see what he's working on and not have to strain so hard looking at the Chromebook screen. Process, so how you're doing something in class. You might adjust deadlines if needed for certain students. You can have the same content as the rest of them, but you might need to adjust a little support. Maybe they need more one-on-one support with it. You might have to scale back a little bit of the complexity of some of the steps you're asking for, or the processing assignment. So they're learning the concept, but they're just doing it a different way. You might make personalized agendas to tailor their needs. And then lastly, I'm going to talk a little about technology for adapting. This is becoming more and more popular, AI technology. And these are just a handful of things you can use. There's lots more out there. Some of them are like ChatGPT, Diffit, Brisk, Quizzes, Quizlet. I do have used some of these to some extent for just things like maybe lowering a reading level of an article that they might be reading for class or things like that. And this concludes the end of my presentation.